again, looking and reflecting back on it is just being curious just how much we aren't learning, how much our systems don't want people to be thinking and engaged and get the bigger picture. I mean, let's be honest, our systems have been about consume. Using fossil fuels because it's made our lives great. I'm sure a lot of locations, wildlife, people, communities would beg to differ that as well. We're in this really interesting stage right now where we can make the transitions, we can move to other technologies, and really the solutions are there. And I feel what we're just one little part of those solutions to get people to then take on all the other solutions, like divestment, like conservation, like reforestating, and that's not even going into all the other issues.
Listen, Stokely, where we try to be involved, to listen and learn for us all to evolve. So welcome to you and welcome the world. We hope you enjoy the stories to be told.
Welcome to Stokely, a podcast where we explore environmental conservation, our human mindset and adventure. Each week we invite you into conversation with people from all walks of life, people who truly inspire us and set about contributing to a greater place for us all to call home. So please take some time to settle in for our conversation today with our host, Maya.
Hi everyone, and thanks for joining me today as I chat to Jimmy Halfcut. Jimmy Halfcut is the face behind Half a Beard and a huge community changing up their appearances in an effort to save some of the world's most valuable natural assets, our forests. If you visit halfcut.org, you'll see the work Jimmy and his team are all about. In 2020, they raised just shy of $400,000 to protect 139,117 square metres of the Daintree Rainforest, which is the world's oldest rainforest located in Queensland, Australia. And it's soon to be given back to the traditional owners to be managed for the long term. That is a patch of trees worth saving, if you ask me. So we get into how it all came about, how Jimmy got into this work, and where it's all going to go from here. Jimmy's very passionate. He's very, very open about what he thinks about the world and how he's getting about changing it. So I really hope you enjoy the conversation, and I'd like to take a moment to thank the traditional custodians upon the lands where this podcast is created and listened to, and I'd like to pay my respects to the elders, past, present, and emerging. So, I hope you enjoyed the conversation. Let us know what you think, and we'll catch you again soon.
I was furious, just the level of destruction that we were putting on the planet with even then all that evidence and, Silent Spring. I remember reading that when I was in bloody high school, about insects all being wiped off and the implications and all the rest of it. And then literally I kind of thought, well, the furious gets you nowhere. Just you get put into a box by people, mad lefty, greeny, tree hugger, rack off. And then literally, mate, it wasn't until I went, well, bugger, I want to cut my beard in half and do it for a year to raise awareness that half the world's forests are gone. That then led to the curiosity, because then, mate, the people just didn't know. And then I was like, well, it's not necessarily their fault, because as we know, the world's run by the Rupert Murdochs of the world. That's not in their vested interest to talk about, we're destroying the planet because of our mining and our logging and our animal agriculture, which are making us billions of dollars. And really, the rest of the planet can go and get stuffed. So look, it was interesting that being furious to curious. It's definitely where I'm at now. Now, kind of encouraging other people to be courageous and step it up, because as we know, only got everything else to lose, but we got the solution. So let's implement them.
Yeah, I have heard you say that before. Be brave, curious, not furious, and it sums it up so well.
Yeah, right. The problem is, I wish I remembered them more often. Some of the little, I don't remember them enough. Anyway, yeah.
It's like you've probably got your own little book full of quotes, like Jimmy Halfcut's quotes.
I seriously don't. This is the shocking thing. I just literally, it's just on the fly, mate. Like, it's a bit machine gun fellatio and rapid, but at its core, it's what I believe. But which made at the same time, that's why I love these things, because it's apart from making you reflect and also think about how to do things better and show other people, well, hey, I'm just one bloke who went off with a pretty crazy idea, and it seems to have turned to magic. And I think that's the one thing. I think in a lot of reflecting on it, it's if it hadn't have been fun and hadn't got people laughing and hadn't got people going, oh, what are you playing at, mate? You lose a bet. I don't think it would have gone anywhere near what it's at now. And it's just the beginning. It is. Watch out, Movember. I'm coming for you. We're going to be the Movember for the environment, raising $1 billion. I mean, they've raised $1 billion in 18 years of operation, eh?
Wow.
$1 billion. I mean, what we could do with that finance.
Yeah.
This is what just shits me. Like that's just $1 billion for one organization. We know the money out there is just disgusting.
Yeah.
And we could protect the planet probably 150 times over.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's anyway, interesting stuff. Yeah. What did I say again? Don't be brave. See, what did I say again? you said be brave, curious, not furious. Awesome. I'm writing that one down. I'm writing down my own quotes.
Excellent. Happy to relay that to you, mate.
Cool.
Hang on, do I get it or do you get it?
Oh, mate. Well, yeah.
Hey, so mate. Like, let's get into figure it. Like, I want to get to know a little bit more about your backstory and how we just like got into this and without officially starting the podcast, because I've just hit record and that's what we do.
Started, mate. How funny! I thought we were just rolling into this. Awesome.
I know it's one of those things that like sometimes I hit record and then I let it roll, and sometimes I don't, and I try to be a little bit more polite about it. But like,
just do it.
Yeah,
press the button. Except we don't want Trump anywhere near any bloody buttons at the moment. But yeah.
Yeah. So but like I'm super. I just want to understand a little bit more about how you all came to be here. You know what I mean? Because what you are doing, as you said, has been incredible. It's so inspiring, and it comes from a place of action. You know, instead of sitting back and like, it's so easy these days to sit back and just like watch all of the devastation until it gets to a point where you're just like, oh well, it's just too overwhelming. Like I just can't even comprehend how to make a difference, let alone put something in place to start, take that first step. But I think, as you said, you've got this incredibly welcoming, encouraging and fun way to make a whole bunch of positive action in the world through Halfcut. And like, where did it all come from, mate? Like, were there seeds that got planted when you were a little kid about doing something like this, or was it the work that you did as a teacher? Like, where were the first things that started to get planted? Where did they come from?
Yeah, look, I think I love that whole metaphor of the seeds, because I think it's been not just one seed, but probably dozens of seeds along my. Just turned 34, mate. Seeing in the beard, I've got a bit of dye back in there in the white, so it's like a fine wine. It only gets better with age. Look, mate, I'll have to say first and foremost, my incredible mother was, and still here, thankfully, mate. She's been an absolute rock for me, and so it was a bit of nature and nurture there, mate. Absolutely. She's a lover of the animals and environment, always has been, always will be, and they're just a really staunch, hard advocate for treatment of animals, wildlife and conservation. So, look, I sort of had my, school knocks of hard training with my mum growing up. But one of the real things, mate, that really set it off was, like most of us, when, we're younger, not everyone goes through the same sort of journey or, sees this level of destruction. But I, as a young 8-year-old, I watched my bushland being absolutely decimated and destroyed. So, look, that really impacted me significantly because, I used to muck around in it. I used to call it the Indian bush off Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. I used to do all kinds of rat bag stuff in there. It was like an extension of my backyard. And again, like, only looking and reflecting on it, know how privileged and lucky I was to go and do that. Some dodgy situations, of course, around people always is always things that happen that, make you aware that, you've always got to be careful. But yeah, look, mate, I think after watching that, so that's the M2. So I don't know if you've ever been in Sydney and driven on the M2. So that actually went through some of Sydney's last remaining temperate forest. At the time, there was like 400 to 800-year-old Sydney blue gums, like a whole tract of them, like a community of 38 of these incredible trees. Humans, 15 people around the trunks of these incredible trees. And actually, Sydney Morning Herald took a photograph of my brother, who I think was maybe 4 or 5 at the time. This looked like this tiny little gum nut baby, out of the Gum Nut Baby sort of book. And the day that photo was taken, it was in the Sydney Morning Herald, page 2. The very next day, they were being destroyed by caterpillar bulldozers. And I think, mate, just going in and just sort of seeing this, it was like a war zone to me, and I just didn't get it. And seeing like dead possums and powerful owls, I think a chemical reaction went off, and obviously part of my genetics and biology with my mum and even my grandfather before that, who I never met, but apparently started happy green farming. So he was replanting trees within his property to reduce salinity levels and shade for his livestock. So there's clearly a genetic carry on of a bit of a green thumb and passion for it. But yeah, mate, for me, that's where I think it really kicked off. My mum was the lead community organiser. She was proudly arrested with 114 other residents. This was under the time of Bob Carr, who said this road would never go ahead, full stop. It did. We lost. We had tree sitters staying with us, traditional owners staying with us. They gave me the totem, the kookaburra, because now, mate, I don't shut up. It's just, so they gave me the kookaburra totem. And they gave my mum the lorikeet. And look, it's just things where, you can't learn that, as you know, it's experiences. And I was fortunate enough, and at the same time, probably unfortunate enough, to be seeing some pretty horrendous stuff and arrests and violence and just stuff that, not much has changed, has it? We're looking at the news these days, not much has changed with the brutality and the violence. And, this is how dictatorships sort of kick off all over again, keep people suppressed and feared, and, they don't do things. Whereas I think after watching that, mate, I kind of went, I watched a lot of people get sick. I watched a lot of family and community hurt. I kind of thought, and then look, I went off and became a teacher and tried to, encourage kids to, well, it's your planet, it's your future. You've got to think about how you want to engage, and found that you can only go so far within that system as well before someone, labeling you and, making life hard for you within a system run by government. And then I kind of, I went off and worked with Lock the Gate Alliance, and still currently am the Sydney coordinator for Lock the Gate Alliance, fighting to keep coal and gas in the ground and support traditional owners opposed to irresponsible mining and water, all the rest of it. And yeah, look, man, then I kind of thought, well, how do you get people, and, how do you get people engaged? And I think when I learned that half the world's forests were gone, I was just gobsmacked. And I think, as we chatted before, I was furious. And I thought, well, people aren't attracted to people being furious or aggressive. We're just not. No one likes to be shouted at. No one likes to be told what to do. So then I kind of went and said to my better half, Jessica, at the time, I said, hey, look, I'm going to cut my beard in half for a year. Is that all right? And she was like, yeah, look, I know that's you, and you got to do your thing. And she, she's the co-founder of Halfcut. And, we kind of went, all right, well, look, let's do it. What have we got to lose? We know, we've got limited time, and how do we engage a different audience and people to talk about this stuff? And really, mate, the rest has been history. We went Halfcut, and it's engaged, from corporates, ethical corporates, to schools, to all ages, all cultures, all sexes, which I've always been most proud about. Is we haven't been an ageist group. We haven't been, you've got to have a beard, as we know. It's mate, there's just an example. We had someone eating Tom and Jerry ice cream for 31 days and eating only half of it. It was brilliant. So it was just, people doing their own creativity their way. And I think that was the thing, is, the key to it was fun. If it didn't have the fun element or the individual creativity, I don't think it would have gone as far as what it has achieved so far. And yeah, mate, so I think that's a bit of the history to it. But I think it really kicked off as well when we were in South America doing conservation work in the Amazon basin in Bolivia. So we're there for 9 months. Bit of travel, and 3 months doing tourism, doing eco sort of tourism and volunteering. I met another incredible woman, Rosa Marie Ruzzi, who at the time mapped out what was probably the most biodiverse national park on the planet, Medidi National Park. But then just seeing her struggles and seeing the, again, government. I mean, you're doing your job right when you've been attempted assassinated 3 times by your own government.
Wow.
And I just had such respect for this woman and her black trade wildlife rehabilitation, where she would take spider monkeys, threatened endangered species, giant otters, and all kinds of, sort of the really nasty back end stuff that us Westerners never see. But yet, unfortunately, our Western society is part of, because they want these exotic wildlife. Not us, but there's people. That's just what's happened in history, shockingly. And just to sort of see how she went about it by like giving that, buying these properties, having the traditional owners, and put it under native title if they could, but also expand on this and do ecotourism, keeping wildlife in the safe sanctuary, which for her was the Serene Reserve, and kind of thought, geez, well, how do we support you? How do we go further with this? How do we get the masses involved? And it just so happened to be I had a big beard. It was, like I was the wild man of Borneo. People go, oh, mate, your beard, awesome. And then again, it was my other half said, oh, it's for conservation. And even being in the Amazon basin and people getting going, what's conservation? Like, oh my God. It's like, are we pushing shit up a waterfall with a feather? That's how it sometimes feels, the environmental movement. And again, it was just that sort of, again, looking and reflecting back on it, just being curious, just how much we aren't learning, how much our systems don't want people to be thinking and engaged and get the bigger picture. I mean, let's be honest, our systems have been about consume, using fossil fuels because it's made our lives great. I'm sure a lot of locations, wildlife, people, communities would beg to differ that as well. But we're in this really interesting stage right now where we can make the transitions, we can move to other technologies, and really the solutions are there. And I feel what we're just one little part of those solutions to get people to then take on all the other solutions, like divestment, like conservation, like reforestating, and that's not even going into all the other issues with plastics and all the rest of it. And so, anyway, sorry, mate, you can say kookaburra, settle down, Cookie, keep it down, mate.
Mate, I love the backstory. I love the ramble, mate. It's so cool. I'm not sure how many times you've really shared that kind of a backstory before, but it makes everything. It brings a whole new level of appreciation from where you've come from to see what you're doing now on like a personal level. Like I've read a lot of stuff and I've seen a lot of the work that you've done, and I've been super blown away by it. But knowing that backstory, it just gives it so much more like,
gravitas,
it just makes,
I think, or like sense. I mean, look, mate, one thing I hipsters, I love them, but I kind of find them, they're harmless, but they're hopeless. Like I don't see many of them getting behind the half cut thing. But again, it's about being courageous and brave. So I'm not having a go at the hipsters, by the way. I think you're all awesome. But I really stress it enough that this was never something to come on to try and be some hipster. I'm not. There's no way I'm a bloody hipster. But it's more about just that actual genuine awareness and urgency that we all need to step it up. We all need to do so much more. And we can, and we just really need to find what gets people like, hey, well, cool, I'm in, I like that, or I can do it that way. And it doesn't even have to be the half cut thing. It could be countless other incredible organizations that have been at the front line, for decades, I just kind of think our point of difference is, and I'll keep on reflecting back onto this, is that ability to make it fun, creative, and for people to do it their way. That's what's really given me the buzz about it. But look, and like anything, mate, like as we know, Rome wasn't built in a day. It's been 7 years of building and developing and failures, like bids on, I wouldn't say it was a failure. We did well, but we cut out half of the population. We cut out the females and we cut out the children and potentially the elderly. Whereas in this way around, we've sort of been able to hit a real sweet spot where everyone can feel connected with a tangibility and a monetary outcome, which I think it's very hard to find that with such a small value. For example, like the $2.50 saving a square metre of the world's oldest rainforest, the Daintree Gondwana land. Like, for me, I mean, it's, I find that incredible. It's 180 million years old, and yet, it should be completely protected in perpetuity. But here we are. And even tree planting and all the rest of it. The monetary value to put a tree in for, potentially $1 to $10 to plant a tree and see its survival. So, yeah, and that's what we're doing before. So I guess going back is it's it's not just like it took off and went off like that. It was 7 years of stalls and chats and engaging and developing. So I mean, the only reason I bring it up is I get asked that all the time, and I kind of feel like the one thing I will say is never let anyone tell you can't do it. The naysayers, it's just, I don't like whatever they do say, you just keep real to yourself and the people who do believe in you and who fill you up, because it just and they're the people you want to be around anyway. Energy, the people who fill you up, not bring you down, but even old Winston Churchill, never give up, eh? Like, I never thought I'd be using his quote, but there you go.
Yeah, absolutely. No, mate, I think it's like there's so much to what you've said, and I just love that you do it with a laugh, and it all does come from a real place. I think it's amazing, and I don't know where it comes from in our society, but there's always this element of like precaution around, charities and where's the money going and like all of this kind of stuff. And I feel like it's a real shame, because there are so many people out there that are really doing a lot of great work,
and they should be paid for that energy and that work and that effort.
Absolutely. Hey,
it's taken me 7 years to figure that out.
Yeah.
Like still to this day, an unpaid, passionate earthling volunteer within Halfcut, my own organisation.
Yeah.
But that's got to change, because as we grow and we scale, that's got to change. But for me, like even more than that, I want to see Halfcut where the developmental stage and where I want to see it being is we are a fundraiser for other people's incredible projects. If it's, planting trees at their school, or, finding a bit of land that they could put under a covenant that we know could be protected. Not just rainforests, but, all forests. And that's what I'm trying to, that's the power, like I feel within Halfcut, that we can give people the opportunities to do stuff in their backyard and, Australia and international. So that's where we're driving it towards, which we're super excited about. A classic example was these incredible women-led not-for-profit in the Philippines.
Yep.
Called the Center for Sustainability. And I was gobsmacked to learn that less than 3% of rainforests remain in the Philippines. 3%. And 2% of it is actually in Palawan, which is the number one tourist destination island in the world, I think last year and this year. And it's just incredible to know that they all went Halfcut. And again, the creativity and what they did just blew our minds. And they had, I think, nearly 48 people in their team, and they raised 20 grand in their first sort of fundraiser going Halfcut. But we're going to potentially match that for them dollar for dollar, so it'll be 40 grand to plant potentially 30 to 40,000 trees and work with the Indigenous people to ensure that this last remaining 2%, which is at two fronts, two big mining companies hacking into this last remaining, virgin rainforest. So, and to boot, it's the Philippines came second last year, and the years before was number one for frontline activists being murdered. So there's just such a heavy depthness to what's going on there. And again, it's almost like what's going on in West Papua. That's like our neighbouring, and yet all this shockingness is going on, and the forest is just being so hacked to shreds, and the people are being killed, and it's just it's really complex and multifaceted and different layers of issues to addressing it. But as we know, if we're working with Indigenous traditional owners and being consulted by them and their guidance, you're that step closer to then working with other entities like United Nations and other government bodies outside of the Philippines are trying to address them. So look, I guess that's just an example of where we're at, and hopefully we'll talk about the incredible Bob Brown Foundation. We can do something with them in the Tarkine, and the orangutan projects. We're in comms with them, so it's almost like, yeah, cool. Well, we can do this. They've seen the fun. The proof's been in the pudding during a pandemic, raising I think over $337,000 in money still going in. So I just kind of feel like that. And if people only knew, really, like, we're a pretty small team of awesome volunteers who've just gone, hey, I'm good at this. I want to do that. And we're like, awesome. That's your little slice. Go for it. And it's just that community feel is what I love most about it as well. Just people going, look, I'm actually really good at this. I want to take that off for you. I'll take that off your shoulders. And it's like, awesome. Run with it. So that's the one thing I think I get a real buzz and a kick out of, is just that sense of community, sense of ownership, sense of, doing it together, striding on together. So, yeah.
Yeah. I think that's incredibly important. Hey, like, on a personal note and through personal experience, I found it really difficult sometimes to continually be, not motivated, because the motivation's in the reality of the situation. And as you say, there's just countless examples of the way that we're able to extract resources from the world, and just the way that beautiful people in countries that are that don't have the protection that we have in a place like Australia,
we're doing our government and invested interest groups are doing a freaking horrendous job at protecting Australia. And it's just, sorry, I just had to jump in there because after just seeing the Narrabri gas project being approved, after seeing fossil fuel industries in the US going bankrupt, like seriously, WTF, just mental. And, this idea, like, sorry, I'm probably going to rant here about the budget and just go, well, what an irresponsible budget. For climate, for, groups like ourselves who are really sucking up the pollution of all the money you're giving to all your mates, that gets you elected and give you these huge donations. And look, the classic example there, as we all know, is, Clive Palmer injecting, I think, was it 60 million or was it 80 million? I can't remember, but how can you inject that much money into a federal election? But look, the wheels are turning. Hopefully we get the ICAC with Rupert Murdoch and all the rest of it. But look, I just kind of feel like, it's, although we think we're doing good in Australia, we're doing appallingly. Like, we are the only developed country in the top 11 for deforestation. The only developed country in the top 11 for deforestation is just absolutely disgusting, considering we are pretty much the youngest country to be colonized or, as we know, stolen. As traditional owners, it's, they've never ceded sovereignty, always has been, always will be Aboriginal land. But 244 years, it's just astounding that, half of Australia's forests are gone.
Yeah.
It's just, you just kind of go, what? Yeah. And it's accelerating, which is just mind boggling.
Yeah. I think that's something that really, speaks volumes, is that, that's kind of the real depth behind Halfcut. It's not that, like, it just symmetrically works really funny if you shave half of your face or braid half of your hair or color half of your, but it actually represents that half has been lost, and Jimmy, there's a lot to be said that, mate, there's only a certain amount of steps we'll be able to take towards preventing more of that in this lifetime. But, like, I think, as you said, if we can do something to set the wheels in motion, then at some point we're going to have to part ways and just be damn proud of what we've done, or we can just sit back and just cover all our emotions up with Netflix and forget about whatever else is happening. I do appreciate what you say about, especially Australia's situation in regards to what they're backing and things like that. There's no doubt about it. What I was going to say before is that, we're very comfortable here. there's a lot of people that are extremely comfortable in this country in terms of the way we live and whatnot. But that comfort comes at a price, and quite often it gets felt. The negative side of that does get felt in other parts of the world, and it's just such a shame that that we can be so closed off from it, whether we do that consciously or not, and just kind of ignore that element of the global economy. Essentially, is just like, if we want to have this continued amazing comfort, like it comes at a price, and it's not, and like someone else feels it somewhere in this world, and that's
look, it's there's developing countries that are feeling it the grunt the most, which have the lesser of emissions. I mean, we're the greatest polluter per capita for our population. And of course, and this is for me personally, even with schoolmates and mates to this day, like, if you're, and the way I always look at it is, I am privileged. I'm white, I'm top of the pyramid in that sort of aspect. Not that I want to be, it's just that's how society has unfortunately been developed. For me, it's like, how you need to get out of your box. You need to think broader terms here. I mean, sure, you can be as an educator as you want, as an accounting or an engineer or whatever. I mean, but you have to think out of those boxes and what we really are doing. Like, you technically are an intelligent person, but how socially intelligent and connected are you to our natural world and what we're doing? And we just can't keep fobbing this off, and it can't just keep. I mean, look, what I will say is I'm absolutely gobsmacked. Like, I went to a barbecue and I was just like, obviously I'm a vegan, so I don't do meat and dairy, but when I was ag science teacher, I was big on native bees, European bees, hydroponics, aquaponics systems that have been shown to work, and less water and all the rest of it, and energy, all the good stuff. And I was shocked how literally half of the people there made that effort to go vegan and eat plant-based at that barbecue. And it was all about climate. It was all talking about pandemics, and it was all talking about forests. And for me, I was actually happy to switch off. I thought, you beauty, I can actually sit back and have a beer and not really think about it. But again, like, it's good because people want to learn and they're interested and intrigued. And I mean, what I did find interesting is how many people were actually not making that connection that, it's the scientists and the science has shown that actually during the pandemic, more deforestation occurred and more wildlife was taken out of the habitat, which, as we know, what created COVID, without going into all the conspiracy stuff, is, it technically was eating exotic wildlife. So key solutions to further pandemics, which have been, the science has shown this, is to protect further rainforest and get on with reforestation, keep the wildlife in there. It isn't rocket science stuff. But then it is that process of looking at developed countries who need it for fuel and need it for food, and we get that. Here in Australia, we don't. We don't need it for further fuel. We don't need it for further plantations. Like with the Tarkine, it's being hacked down, old growth inappropriately. I mean, we've got enough land where it doesn't have to be, virgin, Gondwana land rainforest, the second largest temperate forest on the planet. And that's going on. Like, that's where but as you were off saying before, mate, it's a continuous drive, and how do we bring people along and, get them being courageous and that first little step to making that next, transaction. And, what I will say is we found we actually had more people take part in our Triple Switch for Earth divestment campaign. So divesting their bank, their super, their electricity to ethical corporates who don't invest in fossil fuels, deforestation, animal agriculture, and many more. We had more people sign up to that than we did in the Halfcut campaign.
Yeah, wow.
So that's where you kind of go, cool, because that is in 15 minutes, you can make such a huge impact.
Yeah.
So those, I've got to say them. So Bank Australia, they call themselves the People's Bank. I call them the Planet's Bank. So if you seriously get over and switch over to Bank Australia, Inova Community Energy, unfortunately, they're only in New South Wales at the moment. But again, they gave 50% of their profits to communities, and so they gave 50% of their profits to us. Every new member who signed up, it was $75, came to us to protect 30 square meters of Daintree Rainforest. I mean, what an awesome outcome. But then that's ongoing. It's then ensuring that their energy is with renewable energy and zero fossil fuels. Yes, of course, from making the products, we get all that, but, and the batteries and all the rest of it. But, it's a hell of a lot better than open cut mining and, endless methane being released. And then Australian ethical. So is the super. So, it was just, I guess what I was saying, it was interesting to see how people grab that campaign, but then hopefully we can bring them across and getting half cut as well.
Yeah. And I think we should probably just give a little bit more of an outline, because you're so fluent at your speech these days. You just kind of like breeze through it, and it's like triple switch. Yeah, this has happened in 15 minutes. You can do this.
True.
So let me just hold you back up there a bit, because I think it's super important just to give a little bit of insight to that. So you call it the triple switch campaign, or the triple switch, right?
Yeah,
and
triple switch for Earth, divestment campaign. And
what that does is that you guys have really done a great job with this. I'm so pumped that someone's grabbed this idea, kind of packaged it up really nicely, and then put together a bit of a step-by-step, this is how you do it. And it's really interesting because, as you said, it touches on the people that you bank with, so your bank. It touches on your electricity company.
Yep.
And it touches on the company that you do your superannuation through.
Totally.
And so what you can do is all these things, and I find this so fascinating, right? Like, we get set up with a bank account, and I remember this is how it happened. The Commonwealth Bank
came to school. Yes.
Came to school.
No way to talk. Yeah, totes. And the piggy bank or the check. Yeah.
They come to your school. It blows
marketing.
my
you look
mind.
At it, brilliant marketing, really, and that's the whole cradle to grave.
Is that even legal these days? Could a bank go into a primary school? Like a bank. Like, think about a bank goes into a primary school, and they
rule the roost. They rule the systems.
Yeah.
So, of course, yeah. I mean, look, and they've been so clever about it, and saying, and how they suck people in. And we said this time and time and again, even with these corporates. So if it's not the banking industry, it's then your Santos or your Origins or your BHPs. They then go in and then go, oh, hey, what's your sports or your footy club? We're going to give you a little bit of money and set you up, and we aren't we awesome, And that's where it's the sucker punch. Everyone's been so suckered in, yet the bigger punch is the bigger climate crisis emergency, which, so, I mean, look, I think that's just what I find just so disgusting is the manipulation and how they prey on people who, you are what you know. Let's be honest. We are all who we know. And if you're not willing to read stuff or not that interested in, or you don't have that social justice and community sort of drive and passion that you want to target, like, we just, we all know we're all different. I mean, look at me. You're talking with a bloke with half a beard for 2 years. I'm well different. But I think, I mean, that's the thing, how they did that and got into schools and brought people along. Yet we know they're part of the big bad four.
Yeah.
Pushing forward with Adani, although I know they've retracted now, and all the four. But initially, this is the stuff where I was going to lead on. But, I mean, the way I look at it, if they did it and if it still can be done, it's a bloody good question. I'll find out. Why not get Bank Australia into these schools?
Yeah.
Get the school strike for climate action kids, and this is the thing that I look at it. It's like, be with a bank that every time you tap, it's not going to fossil fuels, it's not going to pornography, it's not going to tobacco, it's not going to but in saying that, I'm not saying that's what the other banks, because they'll be going at me going, well, we don't do that, we're going to sue you. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that there is banks who do invest in these things. I mean, maybe not the pornography one. Take that one out. But you get what I'm saying? Like, it's animal agriculture, deforestation, harmful practices, which really we know are really eating our planet to death. Let's go with the stuff that's going to bring back intuition and bring back the planet into a healthy balance.
Yeah. And that's what you can do with this triple switch. So these three areas of, I guess, your essentially like three areas of your financial life and the way you go about setting yourself up financially, and also to help with your energy. You can make a pretty clean and quick switch, which you can start to call upon other businesses, like you mentioned, Bank Australia, Australia Ethical, and they have a system in place where they invest in other industries, and they look to invest in areas where that, I guess, in some ways, are like regenerative to what we're trying to do here on the planet.
Totally. Yeah. So like even startup tech stuff, further solar systems, other technology, conservation. which is where we come into that tier. But I think one of the interesting case studies we found is we actually then had cafe owners then encouraging their staff and their members to switch their bank, their super, and electricity if they could. So yeah, really, really sort of interesting to see just the flow on and the ripple effect from that, which is really all we really want, like as a ripple effect of goodness, and someone there going, okay, in 15 minutes or less, or, you know, I've started the process, where they can, as I said, it's like, you know, let's be honest, how often do you think about your super apart from it coming out of your paycheck or whatever, or you know, and I think that was the interesting thing. A lot of people did not know what divestment meant. You know, a brilliant fella from 350. I've gone mind blank, but he's part of 350. Oh gosh, what's his name? Anyway, he'll come back to me. But anyway, he was all part of that, you know, model of divestment to ensure, you know, ethically, if you are passionate and concerned about these issues, why give these buggers your money? Why allow them to invest your hard-earned work and money into something you don't find ethical? So, and also, as we know, a great solution to do. And not only that, it sends a message to these other corporates. Like, for example, just looking at what the AFL have done. They've pulled out of Rio Tinto after the horrendous, you know, blowing up a 74,000-year-old cave that they knew, traditional owner sacred site, sorry, not a cave, traditional owner sacred site, which they knew that it was what it was. But the complications of that is now the AFL have left them. So it's the same thing. It's the same if you get enough of the masses and the critical mass going, yep, look, don't agree with that. They then will change their model because they have to, because then they're not making the profits that they've been driven by. And I think that's how you create change. And we are starting to see it. Like we are, it'd just be great if it was a lot faster, is where we're at. We need, a lot faster. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's, mate, I really appreciate the work that you do with traditional owners and that element of, that it takes on a whole area of its own when you start to talk about, you know, you're saving rainforest from being cut down. Okay, look, selling point number one, in a sense, right?
Yeah.
But then it's not just that. It's getting them these areas managed and owned, essentially given back, returned. It was never given away.
Yeah, but, I know what you're saying.
Yeah. To
back on the country. Yeah.
To the traditional owners of the land to manage them. Tell me, because to me that speaks volumes. Tell me, like, why that is so important.
So I mean, look, apart from a thriving civilization, the oldest thriving culture on the planet of 70,000 years, like just the knowledge that I experienced as a young fella, as I was saying, when the bushland was lost, to even just, you know, being able to be in the presence of such a generous and such a dignified culture of people. I mean, I always think about, could you imagine if what happened to the traditional owners of Australia, the Aboriginals, now happened to the white Anglo-Saxon pyramid? Would we be that gentle and kind 244 years later and show them our secrets and our storytelling? And who has the answer to that? But I just feel that what is just so special about, I feel, and what I feel the most proud about is the consultation with the traditional owners and letting them know, well, look, we think we could do this, and can we be part of this story with you? And for them to say, yeah, we'd like that, and we'd like to do this. And I mean, as you said before, it's just heartbreaking to think that traditional owners within the Daintree, so the Kuku, Yalanji people, which is a clan, there's 8 clans in the Daintree, which are, you know, being sort of, you know, with guidance and consultation with the Jabalina Yalanji Aboriginal Corporation, which is funded by government or taxpayers, money. You know, just the fact that they're not even on country permanently. I mean, that just was mind-boggling when I learned that. And when we got talking and we looked at the sites and, you know, the smoking ceremony and welcomed on the country and really being blessed and, you know, just taken on the storytelling that really you're not going to get that level of storytelling because it's been passed down, as we know, for 70,000 years. And for them to say, well, we want this to be a ranger station. We want this to be a meeting place. We want this to be a place where other clans we can meet in solidarity and discuss further business. So, I mean, that to me was just such an incredible, proud moment. As we're saying, apart from protecting, another lot of the world's oldest rainforest, it should all be protected regardless. But here we are doing what we're doing. But I think even further from that as well for cultural experiences. So it's people, our donors, our participants, our Halfcut heroes, all that kind of stuff. They can go up there and they can have those experiences and feel connected and engage in tree planting, engage in the healing of these properties because we have to remove some exotic weeds and plants. And they can feel that they are helping with the healing process, which is what I really feel is part of that reconciliation, that we just, we got to show it. We can't just say sorry and that. We've got to continue and do, so much more. And gosh, it's a buzz. It's such a, for me, I actually feel connected to a culture of once and for all and connected through these people. And as I said, just their generosity has just absolutely, put shivers on me, mate. It's, as I said, it's incredible. And look, and these are the storytelling and the engagement that becomes infectious, and then people feel connected and they can see it, they can be a part of it. So huge, awesome stuff of what's going on there. And not to mention what we really want to see long term, not we. This is what the clans in the Daintree and the Yalanji Aboriginal Corporation, they want to see the Daintree become under native title, so then they can manage the land once and for all without any covenants or government oversight or a white constitution. So I can't wait for that day.
Yeah, absolutely, mate.
Yeah,
far out. Yeah, we've got some work to do, but it's there's a possibility of it. That's for sure.
Yeah, totally complex, but I mean, I think that's the thing. We know how to do it, and it's good people coming on board who want to do their storytelling as well, and share stories and with that tangible outcome. So it's pretty awesome.
I feel as a for me, I guess you would say I'm a first generation Australian, and I feel it's so interesting. There's when you speak to Australian culture in terms of the colonial times of Australia. There is a real lack of culture and a real disconnect from a deeper sense of being and understanding of what we are and what we are doing here, I find. And I know that might rail a few people up and be like, hang on a second, like we're Australian, blah, blah, blah. Like, but I feel this just incredible disconnect that you can call the culture of Australia, you would call it, but you would link it to things like having a barbecue and sitting on a beach and drinking a shitload of beer and eating a shitload of meat and that's our culture, mate. Like that's our culture. And I'm just like, hang on a second, because I've done a lot of travel in the world, and I remember once actually, like someone offered me a slice of pizza, and I was like, oh no, thanks. Like I'm like, this is back in 2015. I'm like, I'm just being vegetarian for the year. I'm trying it out. And he goes, hang on a second, mate. Like you're Australian, you can't be a vegetarian. And I was just like, and then similar with trying to not drink for a year as well, like abstaining from alcohol because, and it's just so interesting. It's like, hang on, mate, but you're an Aussie. Like Aussies always drink. And it's just like, is that what we're really known for? Is that what really our culture is?
I think the world looks at Australians that we're like, it's dumb and dumber. You got the US who are dumb, but we're dumber because we seem to follow all the bad stuff. And look, I hear you, mate, like even with the traveling as well, like I always was, I had a yearning for culture, and that was part of the South America travels as well. And just seeing how different things were done and that genuine feeling of community and culture and land and all the rest of it. But I completely I couldn't agree with you more. It's I think the only ones we left out there is the gambling and our sports.
The gambling and sports, mate. And
we won't talk about the sports rorts because we know we're.
And don't get me wrong. Like I've been able to enjoy. I've been able to have meet some of my best mates through doing those activities and whatnot. And I think it's just something that it's just really evident. And the funniest thing about it I find is that quite often we go abroad and we want to interact with these other cultures. Like, some people might want to go to South America or go to Europe and go to these places that have been established for a long time, and they have this sense of culture. They have this, like, when you go there, you feel this depth of human existence through the art, through the architecture, through the people, through the traditions, etc., etc., etc. But the thing is, we have that right here on our soil, and we have the oldest civilization right here on our soil that can teach us so much and has so much depth in tradition and culture. And it's just like,
what are we doing?
Let's embrace it. Let's get there,
And I think what it is I feel, if we're being very honest about this, the plan was not to have this incredible, culture here. That wasn't it was the genocides. It was the stolen generation. It wasn't the long-term vision. Whereas it just shows how strong the Aboriginals are and continue to be and will forever be. And I feel where I look at it and I'm the first to say I'm wrong and I'm human, and this is where, it's just what I feel and think that, there is a whole lot of healing that still needs to be happened before then we will ever be truly, able to step into that cultural depthness. And maybe it'll never be our space and our right, because, but then on the flip side of that, the way I try to justify that sort of my analogy of it is we're all earthlings and we're all from this one planet Earth. And, I take this from the incredible Bob Brown, and, I forever preach that we're earthlings. And just because I am not a traditional owner does not mean that I do not care just as much about this land and the value of culture or a sacred site, or, ensuring it's another road isn't taking out sacred sites or another irresponsible mining mob getting away with crimes against not only Indigenous people, but the environment, water and other communities. I do feel like an Indigenous person to the world, to Earth. And I feel that's the how I psychologically go about it is like, well, I'm not really part of a culture or part of a mob or, a clan or all the rest of it, but I am beating every day and feeling with this earth. So anyway, look, and I think, but in saying that as well, I definitely, as I said before, they are if you're willing to want to, not ask them what they want, say, look, I feel weird. I'm talking about them as a second person. They're not like, we are all people as well, and we are all bloody connected. At the end of the day, we all came from trees, as we know. We've all got a bloody, DNA that comes from trees that led to evolution of monkeys and all the rest of it. So we are all one in that aspect. But that willingness to say, hey, I've got, I want to meet up with you. I want to do this. What do you reckon? And developing that trust comes first. And I think that's the main thing. Developing that trust and developing that guidance is just super important. And it might have been 2 years in the making. It feels like it was yesterday. So with the relationship with the Jabalina Yalanji Aboriginal Corporation, the Kuku Yalanji mob. So, and can't wait. I'm back up there in November. If the borders are not shut down again, be up there. We'll be handing over the 7 properties. So that'll be an incredible experience. And, and again, if any Halfcut participants or supporters or people, you're welcome. And this is the whole incredible, you're welcome. It's not an exclusive pack of people. It's, you want to be there, you're welcome. So, and that's what I just get a buzz out of. So yeah, just incredible people.
What's the most impactful thing you've seen through making this community focused, like making this a community effort?
Oh, look, I'd have to say that genuine, that everyone wants to do good, and they want to make an impact, no matter how big or large it is, and it doesn't matter, because that's what I found is even that small person, not so purple, that small deed that individual did, what that led to was like 15 other branches. And it was like little mycelium, like the tree roots. Like, it was just, I was like, and I just sit back and watch that and go, that's the magic of what's going on with this. One individual decided to take one other little action or say, hey, I think you should chat to this person or link with that, or, hey, I do this business and I think, maybe we could do this. That's what's blown my mind. But then even just the individuals who have really just kind of gone, no, look, I want to do this. And it's the same thing. I want to do this. That's what people need to start getting in their head is I want to do this with you guys. And for us at our end, we're like, well, that's the community. That's the awesomeness of it. It's like, well, let's do it. You do it, but bring it in. We all do it. It's like a collective sort of thing. It's it's I guess the best way to describe it's almost like tree shyness. Now we're all our own tree and we're all just shyly, nearly touching each other. It's actually a thing. It's called tree shyness, where the branches don't touch. They give themselves a little space. Beautiful photos of it on Google if you look it up. But yeah, I think that's the awesome thing is that respect and that understandability, and understanding your skills and sets and where you stand. So, geez, me and my partner could never have done all of this without community and other people wanting to be involved. So, and deeply, grateful and the gratitude to all these continuing other people coming on board. It's you go to bed feeling pretty awesome and knowing that you're all in this mess together. But we're going to fix it. We're going to fix it.
Oh yeah, definitely, mate. Definitely, mate. Yeah, there's that good there's that good Albert Einstein quote, and he says, "Stay away from negative people. They have a problem for every solution."
yeah, of course. Yes,
and it's just like, and once you just put it in that frame, you're just like, oh yeah. And don't get me wrong, I can be so bloody negative at times and
totally
pessimistic, but. Yeah.
Totally, mate. That's why I'm half cut. This is all the optimism and this is the pessimism, but I've got a bit of regen at the moment. You'll see I've been that's the positive. The regen's coming back.
So good.
Yeah. And look, I think, that's exactly right, mate. And look, one thing it was actually funny. I was having a chat with another mate. He's a bit flat at the moment, lost his job with the pandemic and all the rest of it. And it's just like, look, mate, it's, and he hit me up because he's like, I always feel you're just some bloody rock that just keeps on persevering when shit's happening. And it's like, well, no, I hurt. We're all human. I said, look, if you're not, I think the way to look at it, if you're not depressed by some of the stuff that's going on this planet, there is something seriously wrong with you. You should be depressed, but use that depression for an action outcome positive thing. And if that means going for a walk or on a run or looking after yourself first and self-care, 110%, but even that, we know the science behind planting trees and getting out there in nature, and it's been proven time and time again that your everything improves being in nature and being reconnected. So, so a bit of self-reflection there. I can't wait for this weekend, as we know it's the big canopy camp out. I can't wait to get out into the trees and have my feet off in the dirt, and because that's what and again with other good people, which is all about the recharge, because we are only humans with, we've got to recharge our battery. But yeah.
Definitely, man. Hey, I wanted to touch on just a couple more things too, man. Like your ability to get into schools and chat with the kids and things like that. I remember, growing up, you'd get sports stars and you'd get a whole bunch of, motivational speakers in when you were younger, and I want to be an Olympian, or I want to play footy for AFL, but you're going in there and you're trying to motivate these kids to basically, in a sense, if you think about everything we've spoken about today, you're asking them to take on a bit of a life's path that is very much against what a lot of other people would be telling them in their lives. Like,
totally, yeah.
How does it? I'd love to know. Firstly, like your approach to speaking to school kids, why you do it and how you want to frame it. And then also I'd love to know if you, like, some of the responses you get from the adults in the room that are there, because I imagine that they are probably the ones that you are subliminally talking to as well.
Yeah, totes. Look, I think,
Do you say that to kids? Do you say totes to kids?
Oh, mate, look, I'm really big on relationships, I think, first and foremost. I love organic relationships. I genuinely get a buzz out of talking with humans. I think we're the most interesting, weird things kicking about, as well as the most pollutive, destructive. So you see the halves again, mate. I've always got to flip to the coin, flip to the other side sort of thing. But look, I became a teacher for 4 years, 7 years, sorry. And, one of my key things was relationships with kids. So I was never their mate, but, just that ability to know, how to pick up on things and how they would react to certain, situations and lessons and all the rest of it. And that's why, maybe even when I was an ag teacher, I used to get them barefooted and walking around the ag plot with their shoes off to get grounded. And yeah, sure, that's breaching, policy and school practices. And I was mentioned before about why I just knew I didn't fit that school system. So on one side, I know how to interact and talk with kids, but, from the mouths of babes, these kids are switched on. Like, there was kids I was teaching that I knew had a much higher IQ than myself. And, again, genetics and what you are, what you know, and all the rest of it. But, it's their future. It's their planet. It's and look, the way I always sort of, I think, summed it up, it's like, look, we are all here and we all get something from this planet. What do we put back? Where's our rent? Where's a bit of goodness looking after the other species that we are decimating? And look, I don't necessarily go in with that sort of approach when it's like assemblies and whatnot. It's more a bit of a laugh and, look at this bloke with half a beard and whatnot and rah. But you can kind of see when you lay out, you've got to lay out some of the issues to then give them the solutions. And that's really important. You can't just all say, oh, we got this. It's like, well, we've only got this with you. You are here. If you are wanting to be a sports athlete, awesome. But then maybe once you're in that position, why don't you think about what your carbon footprint is, your emissions and, all the other stuff, and really what you could be doing to influence other people to be putting something back into this one planet we all come from. So, I guess that's sort of been the approach. I think going to your parents sort of thing and the teachers, I think it's interesting. I get teachers who are like, oh my gosh, you're saying everything we'd love to say, but we can't. And it's, they can't because they're going to be pulled up by potentially a parent who works for Rio Tinto or, animal agriculture and all the rest of it. And, and I guess what it is it's not about going in and completely destroying these sort of industries. And, it's sort of saying they had their place and they had their purpose, and yes, they still continue, but we need to move in other directions. We just can't keep going on this stubborn approach because we are eating our planet to death, and let alone the waste. As we know, nearly 50% of everything we create and make, or food-wise, ends up in a bloody bin. More methane. Hey. So look, I think that's it. So that side of it. And then funnily enough, I've actually never really had a parent or a teacher or a schools program come back with anything that's, I've been prepared and ready for it, to be honest. But we've never had it. We've all, it's probably going to come now, but, after saying it, but, we're not even prepared. It's almost like, well, all part of your risk mitigation as well about how deep and what you do touch on. But at the same time, we do try and align things with the syllabus and, give outcomes and templates and lessons for teachers to carry on with. And, so look, it's probably bound to happen, as I say, the famous words of Gandhi, first they laugh at you. Then they ignore you. Oh, hang on, am I saying that right? First they laugh at you, then they ignore you, then they fight you, then you win. So I kind of still feel like we're in the laughing stage. Everyone's still laughing it. They don't realise the laugh's on them because we're going to win.
Oh, mate, I love that. Yeah, it's very true. It's proven time and time again, and that's how it goes, Even right. I'm sure numerous people laughed at you shaving half of your face and then saying this is the way we're going to do it, and then next thing you know, it's like you're absolutely kicking goals with what you've created and where it's going as well. It's it's awesome,
Oh,
mate.
mate, look, it's just the beginning. And as I said, it's not even just going to be about rainforests and conservation. It's going to be about solar panels and renewables. It's going to be about food produce and how we do it, regenerative ag, permaculture. Because as we know, food and our, it is 2050, along with what they believe, World Heritage Organisations believe that the leading cause of death is mental health and suicide, as well as people starving. And so we need to quickly, and look at our food bowls here in Australia. We're either opening them up to mining or they're the biggest sand bowls instead of food bowls, which shows that we must change our practices faster, sooner rather than later. So that on top of seaweed and hemp farming, I'm excited, mate. There's so much possibility and so much interest because and at the same time, it is jobs, it's green jobs, and it is, and I say this openly, it's not just jobs for, blokes with hard hats going into mining shafts and at the same time doing things that they don't really want to be doing. I'd rather, see that transition where people are doing something that they know that's giving back rather than being labelled as someone who's just in it because they want to make a bucket load of money. And sure, there's people who probably do want to just go in and do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's exciting, man. I'm really excited to see just where this goes to. And can't encourage enough people to come and have a chat and hit us up as well, because you'll find your own place. We won't find it for you. You'll find your own place.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Yeah, I find it's a very, very valid point. There's a lot of people that are going into these jobs and into these industries and
trying to make ends meet. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're not stoked. Like I can tell you that I've spent time in a lot of camps, mining camps. There's a real interesting situation going on there at a very, very deep level there, where people are numbing themselves through a lot of consumption of drugs and alcohol because
isolation. Yep.
Yeah, something's not right.
Their own health. Yeah, and look, the research has shown this time and time and again, the case studies and all the rest of it, and it's this is where I just find it such an injustice. For me personally, if I hear one more government say it's about the economy, well, if that's the case, you're only looking after your mates. If they talk, this is about community, this is about the people, this is that's where we then grow and develop as a country that should be the clean green destination for the world. But right now, when it's about jobs, and the economy, they're looking after certain, but that's what's kept them in power. And look, I just hope, people. I mean, maybe again we're just in our own bubbles, which is probably the case, and we're not getting into those other masses. But we'll get there. We're getting there. And, but then again, we try to get into these other bubbles and masses, and then COVID hits, and then we can't get into the stadiums, which is one of our other tactics, to get into these, and have great athletes doing these concepts and making that awareness that, like every second you've sat down, a football field and a half of forest around the world's being destroyed.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
Mate, we're getting somewhere where we're absolutely there are so many people that pick up on these things and shout out. I'm sure you've had so many positive messages of like, mate, this is unreal, love it. Like, this is exactly the small things that we've got to do to just start planting seeds, mate. And like I said, we may never see these things turn into trees, but it's not the purpose of it. Like the purpose is to just do the small thing we can do now. You're doing big things, like, and your team, not just you, but like, and the ripple effect from that and the amount of motivation and inspiration it gives to other people that might just have a little idea, and they're pretty unsure how to activate it.
Do it. All I can say is like we are a creative, odd species. Do it. But this, and if it's everything. I mean, even us chatting now, we're having a carbon footprint. We can't deny that. We are, through our technology and the streaming and all the rest of it. But it's like, as long as you're giving back and, really making a conscious effort to then make your consumers be better, then awesome. But, which is, I think the way around it. And I think it was interesting how you said, like, our team, I mean, we always use the language, everyone's in the team. Like, we're really, we try and break down as many sort of barriers as possible, because it's just, this was never meant to be an isolated thing. It was always meant to be like cheeky, disruptive. People then getting there, finding what they want to do in their own path, and who knows where we're going to go next. I think about it a lot, like just really how far this could go, but it can only happen with the people.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely. I think that's a perfect way to end the chat, with a bit of a call to action. Like just get involved, be brave, curious, and awkward about it, and just get out there and make it happen. Do something.
Totally, mate. Absolutely. That's it, mate. No, look, mate, it's been awesome, mate. Thank you so much for having me. Mate,
I'm so glad that we were able to, finally catch up and connect and get a little bit more insight to yourself and the work that you do, because that story is powerful, mate. Yeah, it's definitely, I understand now how you've been able to do what you've done so far, and I'm so positive that it's going to be able to continue with a lot more energy, momentum, and positive outcomes for sure, mate. It's totally, mate. It's a beautiful thing.
And look, I probably should have mentioned, I don't know if it's still recording, but I mean, just even the amount of businesses that are wanting to come on as Halfcut alliances. You know what I mean? Like, we've just been inundated, and it's great. But to get back to them and sort of, again, these are all systems and processes that are easy, cool fixes. But just incredible to see how many people are like, hey, look, we want to be part of this, and within our business model is a Halfcut alliance. It's you kind of get that feeling like things are moving in that right direction. So it's mate, appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Oh, anytime, mate. Yeah, let's keep on our foot on the pedal, and we'll get to some good places. There's no doubt.
Totally, mate. And hey, let us know if you want to go up to the Daintree, or as I said, it's open for everyone.
So good.
So thanks again for tuning in with my conversation with Jimmy Halfcut. As I mentioned, Jimmy's very passionate about the work he does, and you can check more out about what him and his team do at halfcut.org. A big shout out and thank you again to Jimmy and his team for doing the work they do and changing up a few things in the world, saving some of our most precious resources and giving them back to the people that really know how to manage them. So huge appreciation for that work, and a huge appreciation as well to you for tuning in and taking the time out of your day to listen to these conversations that we produce on Stokely. So big thank you, hugely appreciated. Keep well until next time, and we look forward to seeing you then. Bye for now.